What can I tell you about the Via de la Plata? If you've heard of the Camino de Santiago, it's probably one particular Camino that you know about. That is the Camino France. This is the one that runs for 790 kilometers through northern Spain, takes just over 5 weeks and starts just over the border in France. With over 50% of the arrivals into Santiago, this is the most popular route. But there's actually a number of paths that converge on Santiago, each with their own highlights, but each with their own set of challenges too. One such path is the Via de la Plata. With only 3% of the arrivals into Santiago, it really is a road less travelled. I walked for 40 days, spent about 1,800 euros, endured baking sun, missed breakfasts, put up with some epic snoring, ferocious dogs, beepy mobile phones, aches and pains, blisters, top bunks, early leavers, sickness, all to bring you this video. I'd like to talk about what sets the Via de la Plata apart, what the pilgrims get most excited about, what the big decision is, where the best bits are. Let's get to it. I started mid-April. If you want to avoid the unbearable weather in the south, it's probably as late in the year that you're going to want to start. Starting in Seville, often referred to as the hottest city in Europe, mornings are generally fine in April, but after lunch goes up into the 30s, can be pretty hard going. Moving up to the region of Extremadura, I was warned by many Spanish people that that was going to be where the hottest stages were, and they weren't wrong. Walking late April, early May, as long as you get your walking out of the way in the mornings, you're probably going to be okay. There's lots of stretches with hardly any shelter. Moving further north on the Via de la Plata into Castilla y León, it cools down a bit. Early May, there were some cold mornings, so it went down to about 5 degrees or so. So be prepared for that. Warms up pretty quickly though, but you're going to need a few layers. The final region you'll hit is Galicia. And almost as soon as you walk into Galicia, the scenery changes, the landscape becomes lush and green, but with that, a higher chance of rain. But all that rainfall, it's worth it, because it is so lovely. So, when to go? Unless you're okay with temperatures in the 40s, with humidity, you really need to avoid summer. Best start is late March or early April. Great for the spring flowers, but April is also the busiest month. And there were a few days where accommodation was a little bit tight. Second best time to go would probably be to start in October. Weather's cooling down in the south and it hasn't got that cold yet in the north. I've walked Galicia in November before and it's been fine, although maybe a little rainy. People tend to avoid winter, November to March, because the weather can be rather unpredictable and there's likely to be quite a bit more rain. So, what are you going to bring on the Via de la Plata? Outside of the winter months, you can probably get away with just a sleeping bag liner and leave the sleeping bag itself at home. It's only some municipal hostels that don't provide blankets. Everywhere else does seem to. And many private hostels or albergues will give you sheets and pillowcases, no less. By far the most popular footwear does seem to be the trail runners. A wide-brimmed hat to keep the sun off. 2-litre water bottles are probably a good idea, or a water bladder. There's some stages where there may be nowhere to fill your water up, and that could be 25 to 30 kilometres. So if you don't have time to do the whole 1,000 kilometers of the Via della Plata, you may want to pick out certain sections. I really enjoyed the stretch from Merida to Zamora or Salamanca. Also Orense in Sanabria all the way to Santiago, still fairly quiet, but really beautiful as well. The best cities I thought were number 1, Salamanca. So much rich history, beautiful squares, fantastic food, friendly people. If the hot springs are your thing, then Baños, which means bath, as well as Orense, nice big city. Both featured plenty of hot spring action. Not that great in the summer possibly, but in the winter your feet will definitely thank you for it. But there's plenty of Roman interest in Zafra and Caselas, Salamanca and Zamora. So when you're walking along the Via della Plata, pretty much the main decision that you'll have to make is what to do where the way branches at Granja de Morilahuela. The decision really is between heading north up to Astorga and then turning left to join the Camino France towards Santiago, or you can branch off and head northwest along the Camino Sanabres all the way to Santiago. Distance-wise, there's not much in it. About 360 kilometers via Astorga, or about 20k further via the Camino Sanabres. There's a little bit less climbing if you go via Astorga. Possibly the main thing that affects the decision is the potential busyness of the Camino France. The Sanabres is super quiet still after Granja, but as soon as you hit Astorga, it'll be a different kettle of fish entirely. Also, if you walk via the Sanabres, you'll be heading into Galicia sooner, thereby getting into that lovely, lush, green landscapes quicker than if you go via Astorga. Out of all the Caminos you can do, why choose the Via della Plata? You've got the physical challenge of a 1,000 or so kilometer walk, plus you get all that variety walking from the south to the north of Spain. The Via itself connects a bunch of Roman cities, so most of the way is along what would have been Roman roads. And if Roman remains an architecture is your thing, then there's plenty of that to get excited about. Especially the reservoir that feeds Melida along the aqueduct. Finally, even though the distances are long, there's few hard climbs. So the challenge is not in the intensity of the walking, but rather in the sheer duration of it.